What if the earliest signs of dementia didn't sound alarming at all, but kind and sweet? Before the memory fades, before the confusion sets in, the words still sound warm, polite, gentle, and loving. But something feels off. The timing is strange, the tone is mismatched, and no one notices because the words don't sound like a warning. In this video, you'll discover how simple, kind phrases can quietly reveal the earliest stages of dementia and what to listen for before it's too late to recognize the change. Number 1. Saying thank you at the wrong time. 3 years before her diagnosis, Alma, 75, began saying thank you constantly, even when it didn't make sense. If her son said, "Good morning, Mom," she'd smile and reply, "Thank you." When someone told her, "It's raining outside," she'd softly say, "Thank you," and keep staring out the window. It happened in casual conversations, moments when no thanks were needed. Her family thought she was just being overly polite, but over time, Alma began losing words, forgetting tasks midway, and confusing dates. A year later, she was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. Research confirms that when dementia begins disrupting the brain's ability to track meaning in real time, the mind may fall back on safe, pre-learned phrases like "thank you." These phrases are easy to say, even when the brain loses track of what's actually happening. It's not just politeness, it's often the brain trying to mask confusion with something familiar. Number 2. Offering help with things they can't do anymore. Doris, 71, had always been the helper, but one day, her daughter heard her offer to drive the grandkids to school after she'd already given up her license years ago. Another time, she offered to fix the washing machine when it stopped working, even though she didn't know how to use tools. These weren't simple mix-ups. Doris was volunteering to do things she could no longer manage, and truly believed she could. Soon after, she began getting lost in conversations and leaving the stove on. She was later diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, confirmed as early dementia. Findings suggest that as memory and awareness begin to weaken, the brain may fail to recognize its own limitations. Offers of help aren't lies. They're unaware echoes of a past self. When someone starts volunteering for things they haven't done in years, it might be a heartfelt sign that they no longer realize what they've already lost. Number 3. Apologizing when nothing's wrong. Wendell, 79, had always been a kind man, but about 2.5 years before his diagnosis, he began saying, "I'm sorry" for everything. If someone else made a mistake, he apologized. When the power went out, he said, "I should have known." He even apologized just for being in the room. His wife once said, "You didn't do anything," and he quietly replied, "I must have." As time passed, Wendell began repeating stories, forgetting appointments, and losing track of conversations. Eventually, his doctor diagnosed him with mild cognitive impairment due to early dementia. A medical review found that misplaced apologies are often a sign of growing self-doubt tied to early dementia. The person may sense they're forgetting or doing things wrong, even if no one has said anything. Saying sorry too often isn't always guilt. It can be a quiet sign that the person no longer trusts their own mind. Number 4. Giving random compliments to strangers. While shopping, Jillian, 69, looked at the cashier and said, "You're the most beautiful person I've ever seen." The cashier smiled, but Jillian's friend was stunned. That night at dinner, she complimented a delivery driver's shoes 3 times, then repeated it after he left. Over the next 2 years, Jillian often praised strangers and gave the same compliments repeatedly. She then began mixing up names, missing appointments, and struggling to follow conversations. That's when doctors diagnosed her with early-stage dementia. A study revealed that early cognitive decline can impair social filtering, the brain's ability to gauge what's appropriate in a given situation. Without that filter, Expressions of kindness can become exaggerated, misplaced, or repeated, often confusing those around them. It's not that the compliments aren't genuine, it's that the brain is losing track of when and how to say them. Number 5. Reassuring others when no one is upset. Noreen, 77, had always been the nurturer of the family, but about 2 years before her diagnosis, she began saying things like, "Don't worry, everything's going to be fine," even when no one seemed worried. If her granddaughter came home quietly, Noreen would whisper, "You're doing great." She'd say things like, "It's okay, there's no rush," even when no one was rushing. It felt like she was reacting to emotions that weren't there. Over time, she began repeating herself, misplacing items, and forgetting names she'd known for years. Eventually, she was diagnosed with early-stage dementia. A new report shows that dementia can affect the brain's ability to read emotional context. The person may think others are sad, tense, or afraid, even when they aren't, and respond with kindness to imagined emotions. Reassurance is beautiful, but when it comes out of nowhere, it might be a sign that their brain is misreading the room. Number 6. Overpraising others for small things. Beverly, 80, had always been warm, but 2 years before her diagnosis, her praise became excessive. If her neighbor brought over the mail, she'd say, "You are such a gift to this world." When her great-grandson tied his shoes, she called him a genius. At first, it seemed sweet, but the compliments became intense and exaggerated. Once, she clapped for a nurse and said, "You're the most amazing human being I've ever met." It wasn't sarcasm. It was sincere, but strange. Within a year, Beverly began repeating stories, losing track of time, and even forgot how to get home. She was later diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. A study suggests early dementia can alter emotional control, making people more impulsive with affection. The part of the brain that evaluates social balance begins to falter, and praise becomes amplified in minor situations. It's not manipulation or flattery. It's a sign that their emotional boundaries are starting to blur. Number 7. Repeatedly saying, "I'm just happy to be here." 2 years before his diagnosis, Gerald, 77, began saying the same phrase at every gathering, "I'm just happy to be here." At first it felt sweet, something he'd say at dinners or holidays, but soon he was repeating it at doctor visits, gas stations, even in response to simple greetings. Once, while checking into a hotel, he said it 3 times before the receptionist had spoken. His daughter grew concerned when he couldn't remember who he was visiting or why. Within a year, Gerald was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. Studies indicate that when the brain begins to lose its grip on real-time processing, it clings to safe, familiar expressions. Repeating something comforting, like, "I'm happy to be here," becomes a way to fill conversational space without thinking too hard. It may sound sweet, but if it's said out of place, again and again, it could mean the person is grasping for something solid in a mind that's starting to slip. Number 8. Saying, "I'm fine," when something is wrong. About 3 years before his diagnosis, Milton, 79, fell in the driveway, scraped arm, shaken, visibly stunned. But when a neighbor rushed over, he smiled and said, "I'm fine, really." Another time, he left the grocery store without his bags, and when the clerk called him back, he just shrugged. No matter what happened, confusion, forgetting faces, or small accidents, Milton always brushed it off with the same phrase, "I'm fine, really." Later, he was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. A large-scale study showed that people in the early stages of dementia often mask distress with reassurance, especially as their self-awareness starts to slip. Saying, "I'm fine," becomes automatic, even when it's clearly untrue. When kindness becomes a shield for confusion or fear, it's time to look closer. Number 9. Ending conversations with "I love you." 2 years before her diagnosis, Francine, 82, began ending every phone call and visit with "I love you." Not just with family, but with coworkers, delivery drivers, even her pharmacist. At first, her daughter found it sweet, maybe sentimental, but soon it felt off. Francine said it in moments that didn't fit. She once told a stranger in the grocery store, "I love you," after asking where the bread was. Over time, she began repeating herself, missing appointments, and forgetting what day it was. She was later diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Recent evidence supports that sudden emotional expressions, especially ones that don't match the social moment, can be a subtle early sign of dementia. The brain begins reaching for meaningful phrases, even when they're out of place. When someone starts saying goodbye with "I love you" every time, and it doesn't feel like them, it may not just be warmth. It may be their mind trying to hold on before something slips away. They don't always forget first. Sometimes the earliest sign of dementia sounds like nothing but kindness, and by the time memory loss appears, the clues have already been spoken. If you've been hearing these kinds of phrases and something feels off, you might be hearing the brain quietly speak its goodbye before it forgets how.
And there you have it. What are your thoughts? Next, dive into this video for more essential tips to transform your health and help you thrive. You're going to love it. Thanks for watching Healthy End, and we'll see you there.